Far in the west of Kalimdor, a forgotten land of sand and secrets has sat undisturbed for nearly 1,000 years. Silithus is a harsh desert, with sun-bleached bones and geometric crystals dotting the windswept terrain. It's a rather unique environment for one to find themselves in, but adventurers have recently been called to this remote corner of the world to contend with a rising darkness. The silithid, an insectoid swarm controlled by the dark power of an old god, are gathered here in massive underground hives, preparing to strike against the free people of Azeroth. Earlier this summer, we explored the rise of the silithid in Classic WoW, documenting all the hints and clues that pointed toward the silithid on your leveling journey. Now, we're on the doorstep of the source, and while this video isn't a direct sequel, I hope that it provides a nice companion perspective that uncovers even more secrets related to the silithid and the capital of Ahn'Qiraj. As always, thank you for the fun comments and support, and with all that being said, let's get right into it. One of the most prominent features found here in the desert is in the far south, where the massive Scarab wall blocks entry into Ahn'Qiraj, a sprawling temple city where the silithid swarm and their sentient masters, the Qiraji, prepare for war. 1,000 years ago, the Night Elves fought the silithid in the War of the Shifting Sands, which resulted in the elves and the ancient dragons sealing the city off from the outside world, trapping the insects inside along with their master, the slumbering old god Cthulhu, a force of unimaginable darkness. The Scepter of the Shifting Sands, a powerful artifact capable of opening and closing the Scarab wall, was fragmented and lost, and the elves, who suffered many losses in the war, abandoned the wastes, and it remained something of a buried topic in Caldora history. For centuries, the elves kept their long vigil over northern Kalimdor, and the heat of the desert sand was forgotten, until now. With the clues and growing infestation pointing toward the silithid returning during the time of Classic WoW, the bipartisan Cenarian Circle has called for a return to Silithus to eliminate the source once and for all. The Alliance and the Horde, for the first time in several years, truly unite in an unprecedented war effort, with representatives in capital cities driving an economic boom as artisans craft the necessary equipment. Everything from bandages to blacksmithing supplies. As all this is going on, a small group of dedicated heroes works to reconstruct the lost scepter needed to open the gates, which requires not only an around-the-clock strike team to thin the bugs within Silithus, but also the completion of a very long quest chain spanning the entire world. Think about something like the lengthy Lord of Althalat quest line, but 3 to 5 times more involved. Raids, world bosses, invading capital cities, it's all rolled into this one objective of restoring this ancient scepter. There is absolutely no way I can do this epic story justice here in this video, but there is somebody I highly recommend checking out, Barney64 here on YouTube, who has the most incredible 4-part adventure detailing the entire thing. It's definitely worth a watch or a rewatch. Once the war effort is completed and the scepter has been recovered, the Scarab gong is rung, breaking the ancient seals on the wall and beginning the Ahn'Qiraj War. Once the outdoor war event is over, adventurers can fight their way into the ruins and temple of the city, slaying a dark god and ending the silithid menace once and for all. This is all very grandiose, big storytelling. The major stuff happening in the world during this part of Classic. Noble87 has a great lore video that goes more in depth on the history of the silithid and these wars, but my goal for today was to give you a brief overview of what's happening here so you understand the significance of the small details I cover next. Let's begin near the entrance to Silithus. Past Valor's Rest, where graves of fallen elves and perhaps a dragon lie, players can gaze up at an elven tower overlooking the eastern desert. It is known as Staghelm Point, named after Fandral or Valston Staghelm, who both fought during the war. This is also the first example of the unique elven architecture seen here. If you can fight your way past the Twilight's Hammer cultists that have taken over the area, you'll find a surprise at the top, Raloshan the Eternal Watcher, a night elf with some very interesting dialogue. Greetings, traveler. It was here, nearly 1,000 years past, that the Qiraji began their march of destruction across Kalimdor. Thousands of lives were lost during the war, most in this cursed desert during the initial invasion. I am one of only a few that remain, chained to both the past and present. I know not why I am to remain stationed here, but I know that I must. I have been slain 100 times. I always wake here alive. Some say I am cursed, and others, They say that I am blessed, a herald to hearken in a new age. Ancient forces stir, forces that have not been seen or felt for thousands of years. The world weeps. Perhaps a new sundering comes, a sickness born from within. The foulness has begun to seep into our lands. From the dream comes nightmares, nightmares to befoul us in our waking hours. That is a lot of info to take in all at once. It seems Ralishan witnessed the War of the Shifting Sands, but is now bound here to Silithus by some unknown magic. Some of you might sense the parallels to another NPC here in this zone, Baristolth of the Shifting Sands, a silithid hunter blessed with the immortality of Nozdormu, leader of the Bronze Dragonflight. Baristolth is aware of the role he plays as a servant of the dragons, but it seems Ralishan does not know why she's here, even though their circumstances are similar. It is never fully explained what her dialogue means, or why she appears to be immortal, but her reference to the Emerald Dream seems to tell us she is familiar with its corruption into the Emerald Nightmare by the old gods. This is a story beat that is addressed somewhat during the Scepter quest line, but seeing as Ralishan isn't a part of any quests, most people don't know about the details that can be found up here. Once you reach Cenarian Hold, an abandoned outpost now repurposed for the war effort, the story splits into three main directions. The first is the most substantial, focusing on the Twilight's Hammer cult and finding out how they are linked to the Silithid. This part also features our friend Hermit Ortel, who lives in the special cave I covered in this video. The second is the beginning of the Scepter quest line and the war on the 3 Silithid hives that have crept onto the landscape. And the third is the disappearance of Natalia Maralith. This is the piece I'd like to focus on most today. Commander Maralith is concerned about the disappearance of his wife Natalia, a researcher within the Cenarian Circle who was acting strangely leading up to her walking off into the desert. She was headed to the Bronzebeard encampment, a dwarven archaeological outpost set up near the Scarab wall, and the commander wants you to question the researchers there. From what you can gather, Natalia became transfixed by a crystal found within Hive Regal in the north during a scouting mission, which may have caused her to gradually lose her sanity and cause her to return to the Hive as a brainwashed servant. With this added context, I believe Rashal, the night elf freed from captivity in Feralis, was going to meet a similar fate. The commander, distraught but knowing the cost of letting his wife suffer, dispatches you to the Hive to deal with her. Upon finding her deep within the winding tunnels of Hive Regal, she wastes no time in revealing her new role. You will make a fitting sacrifice. Cthulhu will retake this world. Now embracing her title as the High Priestess of Cthulhu, and equipped with several dark spells, you and your allies have no choice but to finish her off. Along with solving the prophecy of Cthulhu by completing the Twilight's Hammer story, this is one of the first few clues to the true threat that lies within Ahn'Qiraj, an old god breaking free of its ancient bonds. I think this serves as a great companion quest to the overall story here, and it also establishes the psychic powers the Qiraji and Cthulhu use against mortals to dominate their minds. This may be the final step in the chain, but there's one more detail that links to Natalia, a rare item drop found in any of the Silithid hives. Bran Bronzebeard's Lost Letter is a simple quest item you can find and return to the dwarves, but reading the letter gives us some more interesting information. To whom it may concern, if you're reading this, I'm either dead or soon to be dead. It's hard to say. Most of the crew is dead anyhow. Found information about a titan. Great battle between him and an old god. Yes, a bona fide old god. Found ancient tunnel leading to Ahn'Qiraj. Taking it. Take this letter to my old camp. Make sure my monkey is getting adequate food, water, and hugs. P.S. Watch out for crazy old god worshipping night elf. This is our first and only reference to Bran Bronzebeard in classic WoW, the legendary adventurer who crops up in later expansions from time to time. He was present when Natalia was brainwashed by Cthulhu, but the thing that really stands out to me is the mention of an ancient tunnel breaching the Scarab wall and leading inside Ahn'Qiraj. With the Silithid spreading hives throughout southern Kalimdor, even before the wall was unsealed, it is implied there must have been some way for the insects to escape. Maybe some sort of hive passageway, or a flaw in the original Titan prison, an access tunnel that was not entirely sealed up. There's no evidence of this existing in-game, but it does call into question where it would have led, and where Bran might have showed up. Inside the ruins, deep inside the temple, or somewhere else entirely. That is the jumping off point for the final section of today's video. What if there was more content to explore in this wasteland? Something more to discover beyond the Scarab wall? Once your server has completed the war effort and the scepter has opened the gates, there are two options on how to proceed. You can either enter the ruins or hike up the staircase to the temple. However, most players are unaware of what lies beyond the instance portals out in the open world. From what you can see at the entrance, it looks like an uninstanced version of what you can find inside the raids, and while that is true, it's more of a facade, a brief little copy that fades away once it's out of view. The ruins are cut short by a wall, which has a doorway leading to one of my favorite out-of-bounds areas in the game, Southern Silithus. As a small disclaimer, this is footage from a Wrath of the Lich King server, and this area has a few tweaks and edits compared to early vanilla, but I'd highly recommend you checking out Turbo Tarzan's video on this region for even more details. The road leads you to a large open valley, where a circular path leads around most of this new zone. More ruins are scattered around, but there are a few distinct landmarks, like these Ahn'Qiraj shrine areas, and two hives that are completely unique. To reiterate, this is not an incomplete or unfinished piece of one of the raids. It's an entirely unique area that originally may have been planned as an outdoor questing spot. Two of my other favorite details here include the random water tile on the east side, and the gigantic silithid husks just baking in the sun here. Pretty creepy. There are still ways of getting all the way out here in Classic WoW, and some players have used the large central area, the area that used to have all the columns, as a PvP competition spot. A lot of players categorize Silithus as an overall incomplete zone, despite all the action and war going on, and this is really the cherry on top. 30 or 40% of the original size is blocked off and hidden away from the rest of the world. Even the very first map of Silithus confirms this theory. Here is the map we know now, and here's the map that existed before October of 2005. Note the misspelling of Ahn'Qiraj, and the absence of a few important places like Cenarian Hold and Staghelm Point. Truly a fascinating anomaly in the game's history, and it's fun to speculate about what could have been. Would the raid and the ruins eventually guide you out here as some sort of exit route? Did Brand's ancient tunnel connect to somewhere out here? Was the quiet Tauren village on the southern shoreline somehow involved? Who knows? These details are now lost, somewhere among the broken terrain and forgotten dunes, but I hope that by summarizing what we do know, I can help preserve another story of Azeroth and share it with all of you, the story of Southern Silithus. Thank you all so much for watching. Let's all consider ourselves members of the Southern Silithus Awareness Committee, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts down in the comments. Originally, I wanted to just cover the unused area, but I figured a bit of history and a few other secrets would fit in just fine. And I hope you learned something new today out here in the desert. Until next time, may the Force be with you.